I've been. Dreams are seeds we plant, my friend. Dusty boots, but a heart of gold. Your story's waiting to be told. Inventive journey, here we go. Through highs and lows, we let it flow. Startups rising, small biz shine. Your time is now, your stars align. Cowbell ring and feel the beat. Hustle hard, don't take a seat.
Sorry, and remind me how to pronounce the last name?
Ellithorpe. So it's just Ella and then Thorpe.
Okay, perfect. Hey everyone, this is Devin Miller here with another episode of The Inventive Journey. I'm your host, Devin Miller, the serial entrepreneur that's grown several startups into 7- and 8-figure businesses, as well as the founder and CEO of Miller IP Law, where he helps startups and small businesses with their patents and trademarks. If you ever need help with yours, just go to strategymeeting.com, grab some time with us to chat, and we are always here to help. Now today we have another great guest on the podcast, Jaime Ellithorpe. And Jaime started her journey, went to college studying communications and journalism, wanted to be a broadcast anchor, and then worked in marketing in the healthcare space. Then the first job afterwards was as marketing, doing fundraiser for healthcare business, and worked for Humana and UnitedHealthcare, among others. Worked for large corporations for a while, and then wanted to go in a different direction, so got into coaching and marketing for small businesses. Started doing that while she was in the corporate job, and then around 2019 left corporate and planned on doing in-person networking, and then COVID shifted that, so shifted their agency and started that, and been doing it for the last several years, and enjoying the journey. So with that much as a quick introduction, welcome on the podcast, Jaime.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me. Wow. You did such a great summary of my history. I'm not exactly sure where to start now, but I'm happy to go back.
I encapsulated into the 30 or 45-second version, but why don't we go back and you can unpack that a little bit more?
Yeah, sounds good. So yes, when I first went to college, probably like so many seniors in high school, the world was my oyster and I wasn't exactly sure what I wanted to do, but I got a fantastic scholarship at a junior college where I was in a group of about, I can't remember if there was 12 or 15 of us, where we were right underneath the president of the college's arm, actually representing the college as the best of the best students, if you will. So I had a fantastic experience my first 2 years of college and got the opportunity to experience some phenomenal events, meet some fantastic people who really were profound fundraisers for the college. So that was kind of half of my first 2 years of experience, is learning how to network, how to represent a brand, and really mix and mingle, I guess, in the business sense. That was one of my first opportunities to do that. But aside from that, I got heavily involved in radio broadcast. At the time, I thought I wanted to be a television anchor, and the TV section for broadcast was not yet built at the college, so they put me in the radio program. So that was a pretty fun experience. I was a DJ for a 100,000-watt radio station live to the Metroplex. So it was really like being on a real radio station and creating the jingles and running a live broadcast just like I had a job really in the business. So that was a ton of fun. But my career kind of started to slant more towards the written word. I ended up becoming the editor of the news section of our school newspaper. And so that's kind of what set me on a different direction as opposed to broadcast, is I really got involved with the written word and journalism. So I ended up graduating those first 2 years with an associate's degree in journalism, and then transferred into a larger university and ended up my career with a communications degree. So within that second set of 2 years as a junior and a senior, I did get some television broadcast experience, but I really honed in on the journalism side. So when I came out of college, I felt like I was really well rounded in all areas of communication, but was a little bit lost into what to do with that education because I learned some harsh truths about the news business that I wasn't really aligned with. And it really kind of killed my dreams of wanting to go in that direction. So I had an uncle who talked me into the insurance business. So, being very new and out in the business world, I took on that challenge. And I have to tell you, it was probably one of the hardest challenges that I ever had, being a 22-year-old trying to sell life insurance and absolutely not having a book of business behind me or a family business to support that. It's a very hard industry to get into. So I did that for about 3 years and got into the investment space as well with the insurance business. So it was a great background for me. I think I really cut my teeth in how hard it is in the business world to get started and to really grow from nothing. So I'll kind of fast forward from there. During that time, I made a huge move to Dallas, Texas. So at this time, I lived in the Midwest. I was born in Omaha, Nebraska, and had done my insurance and investment work there, but grew up in a very small town right outside of the Omaha Metroplex. So moving to Dallas was a huge thing for me, and it was very, very frightening to do. But I ended up landing a job in healthcare. And when I say landing a job, it was really by happenstance. It wasn't something that I was looking to do, but it kind of set the trajectory for the rest of my corporate career. But before we get into that, my first job in the healthcare space was to be a fundraiser for a nonprofit organization, and it was a chain of retirement communities. So my job there was to get out into the community and build the brand and build the name, and also find influencers who might be willing to donate to the cause. So that was a very powerful, I think, first job for me, aside from the insurance business, because I learned so much. I was able to put my marketing know how to work. I was able to do a lot of journalism in that job by writing a lot of content for them. And then I think my broadcast experience probably did help me in the networking world. And that really planted the seeds for me. That role did, of making connections for life. I still have so many great friends and so many fantastic business contacts who have touched me in profound ways 20 years later. So that was really a great start. And then from that position, I evolved into big corporate healthcare and did about 2.5, 3 years at Humana. And that was really another great milestone for me because I had been working in smaller organizations and really straight across on the hierarchy. There wasn't a lot of different levels of management. So Humana was really my first taste at what we'll call big corporate. And I really blossomed at my time there, just learning how to maneuver in a big organization and learning to be really independent, because that was one of the surprising things I learned, is that you really have to find your way in big corporate. It's not handed to you. You have to be resourceful. And I feel like that's probably one of the best things that I took from my time in corporate into my business today, was learning to find the answers, and that everything isn't black and white and there's a lot of gray, and sometimes you've got to find your place in that, or take a stance in that and come up with a solution, because that's what the expectation is. So really enjoyed my time at Humana. And then I evolved into UnitedHealthcare, which I felt was a huge step in the right direction in that industry, because United is really considered to be the giant, especially in the space that I was in. I was in the Medicare and retirement division. And so that was a huge leap for me professionally. So in that role, I ended up getting a very coveted role. It was a new role within the organization. And from what I understand, people on the inside were fighting for that role. But because I had this expertise that I had brought from Humana, I was the new kid on the block that they selected. So I don't know if I made any enemies when I first got there or what, but I found out later that a lot of people internally had been fighting for that role. So coming into United, I had a lot of eyeballs on me. I had a lot of clout that was perceived because of the unique experience that I was bringing in for Humana. So it really set me up to be in a great spot with United. But I have to tell you, and this is where I'm going to lead into my story today, is I got everything that society said I should have in success. I moved to a huge city. I got into corporate America. I got into the best company in the space of corporate America, the giant. I got a coveted role. I had respect automatically because of where I had come from and the knowledge that I was bringing to this company. But I have to tell you, after a while, I was completely empty. And I went through a very long period of time thinking there was something wrong with me, that I had followed the playbook. I had gone by all the rules. I went to college. I did all these things. And here I sat with what looked to be successful on the outside, and I was absolutely miserable. So I started to look within, and over a series of months and a chain of events, I got introduced to a coach. And I had no idea what coaching was, but I was invited to a session with a coach, and I started to learn what I think really changed the trajectory for me and how I got into business was about mindset and the beliefs that we carry on our subconscious mind that actually dictate the reality that we're living. And what I realized was I had some inner blocks that needed to be cleared and that I needed to strengthen my mindset. And I had really created all these choices in my history of what I thought everyone expected of me and what I thought society expected of me. And in reality, it wasn't what was making me happy. So I continued down this personal development journey as I still had my corporate job. And I was so moved by the experience that I had through hiring a coach that I decided that I wanted to do the same for others. So I embarked on my own certification journey. So while I was still at United, I spent a year and a half. It was almost like getting a master's degree while having a full-time job. I immersed myself in a coaching certification program, and I ended up getting that certification while I was still in corporate. And I'm so proud of that experience because I grew again phenomenally personally in that space, learning to become a coach, but it also set the foundations of one of my key pillars in my business today. So that kind of happened in corporate. During that time, because I was in the program, I was also encouraged to get some clients. So I started to take on my first business clients. So I was really pretty busy because I was still keeping the job going. I was still finishing the certification. I was working with clients. And I was also trying to understand this online space because a lot of coaches think they need to be online in order to grow their business. So I had a whole lot going on during that probably 2 year time period before I actually left my corporate job. So, in order to grow my business, I was also doing a lot of in-person networking. So, I was doing what a lot of people call moonlighting, where I was getting up early in the morning and I was attending networking groups full of small business owners. Then I was going to my day job, and then I was working nights and weekends on customers, getting things set up in the online space, further delving into the power of mindset and personal development. So I was pretty busy. So that was my life for about 2 years. And then let's fast forward to October of 2019. By this time, some things had happened in my company with my corporate job that I was just no longer in alignment with. As a matter of fact, I didn't even agree with some of those things that they were doing, and I was absolutely miserable, and I knew that I needed to leave. But what I thought was if I quit my corporate job and that I could network in person more, then I could quickly grow what was becoming a coaching and consulting business. So in October of 2019, I said goodbye. I had just reached my 5-year anniversary with United, said goodbye, and thought that the stars were aligned. Well, little did we know, only a few months later, something that none of us could have ever predicted was going to happen, and that was the COVID pandemic. So here I am, just a few months in my little fledgling business, networking, trying to get my grounding and really still kind of in that Pollyanna mindset that this was going to be easy and that the more that I focused on it, the faster it was going to grow. Well, then the pandemic hit and everything that I had built locally to grow my business and all the networking that I was doing literally died on the vine within probably about a week. So I was probably like so many other people, I was scrambling, trying to figure out what to do. And so I turned to those foundations that I was learning and trying to implement my business based on starting an online business. So I dived in. I was listening to a lot of different gurus at that time, which really kind of, I think that was a question that maybe you might ask me later is probably the biggest mistake that I made in my business. And that was a huge mistake because I listened to too many people and I tried to go in too many different directions. So here I am with a half a dozen strategies, half baked, half implemented, and nothing was really working. But one of those strategies was LinkedIn. At this time, I didn't know much about LinkedIn. I didn't think much about LinkedIn. I had only used LinkedIn as a place to potentially get another job with my corporate career. But one of the strategies that I learned is that you could actually use it to grow your business. And what I realized is I could take all the in-person networking that I was doing prior to the pandemic and reinvent that online, but in a much more streamlined, strategic way that through online networking, I now had the power to pick and choose the types of people that I was reaching out to connect with. And I could pick and choose the types of people that I was spending time with instead of going into a traditional networking room of, say, 50 people, and the reality of maybe two of those people being people that I should be having a conversation with. When I realized that, that was probably one of the biggest paradigm shifts that I have had in my business to date, was to be strategic about the types of relationships that you're looking to build in your business, whether that's clients, whether that's joint venture partners, or whether that's opportunities, very much like how Devin and I connected today to be on a podcast. That is all available online and more. And especially if you're a service-based business in the B2B space, LinkedIn is one of the hidden gems to be able to do that. So I ended up building a little system for myself on LinkedIn. And as I was doing that, the person who was teaching me that offered me the opportunity to be certified in his way of doing things. So I didn't think much about it at the time. I just thought it was going to be an additional offer to my coaching and consulting clients. And it ended up being the thing that took off for me during the pandemic. So over the last 4 to 5 years, I have spent my time primarily building systems for B2B service-based businesses based on the foundations of what I learned in and around LinkedIn. And it's been the most impactful thing that I've ever done for my business and what I love to do serving people today. Because if there's one thing through my entire history of what I could tell you of what I wished I would have known 5 or 6 years ago, is that in order to have a successful business, you've got to have a system to consistently get more clients. And if you don't have that system in place, it's going to be very, very hard for you to be successful in your business. So that's kind of a longer version of how I got to where I'm at today. And I'm so passionate about helping other people through the journeys that I've been through, and hoping that some of the trials and errors that I've had in my business and in my journey, that I can either eliminate those for other business owners or definitely shorten the curve that they need in order to get to the results that they're looking for.
Oh, definitely a great journey and an awesome walkthrough. Now, or just driving back in just a little bit in the journey, one of the questions that came up, but not the two or final questions always at the end of each episode, but when you were doing both the corporate as well as kind of starting the side hustle or doing that or getting your business up and going, was there a tipping point or how did you kind of decide, okay, this is when I'm going to make that final leap or I'm going to go all in?
I don't think there's ever that special moment. And I think for those who are waiting for it, I hate to be the spoiler alert, it never comes. But I guess the turning point was, and I remember this vividly, I was on a walk and I had my headset in on my phone talking to one of my dear friends who's also a business owner. And she started to laugh. And I said, "What are you laughing about?" And she said, "I just got this picture in my head." Because I had been going back and forth. Like, I'm so miserable. I got to quit this job, but I'm scared. I kept doing this back and forth. And she said, "I got this visual of a little bird sitting on a tree limb. And this bird just flipped over and is hanging upside down on this tree limb." And she said, "That's you, Jamie." She said, "You are so scared to fly and start your business full time that you are literally hanging upside down on this branch." And we both started to laugh. And I think that was like the catalyst that I had realized that I could no longer be paralyzed in fear and paralyzed in the unknown, and I just had to do it. So that I finally just did it. I don't think there's that beautiful moment that the stars align and the birds sing and all of that, and you just know. I think you just have to decide. And in that decision, you just have to say, "I'm going for it," and there's no failure.
No, that makes perfect sense, and it sounds like a good way a good transition to lead you to where you're at today. Now, one follow-up question, kind of on your journey, is now if you're to as we kind of caught up to the present day, if you're to now look out, the next 6 to 12 months as things have already evolved, kind of where do you see where do you see things headed from here?
Yeah, so we're growing the brand. I mentioned earlier, and I guess I didn't finish this story, that the mindset and the personal development piece were one of the pillars of our brand. So I believe there's three things to grow what I call a heart-centered business. And to me, a heart-centered business it is about profit, but it's also about making an impact and being fully in the state of joy of what you do. So that's why I named my company 540 Strategies, is 540 is the numerical equivalent of joy. And that is our ultimate goal, not only in my organization, but for us in the organization to take that out and share that with our clients. So in that state of joy, those three ingredients in our triple M system are mindset. I fully believe that you have to have a mindset that's willing to go in the growth stage of your business. Because what I have found as a coach is, even though we're implementing great strategies to grow the business, if someone's mindset is full of fear, doubt, worry, or anything that's holding them back subconsciously, they will sabotage the strategies. So that's why I lead with mindset first. The second one is marketing. You've got to have a marketing system in place to grow your business. If you don't, it's going to be happenstance at best. And then the third piece is manifesting. And what that means in our brand is being very strategic and intentional on where you're headed in your business and what your goals are. So those are the three things. But for us, and where I'm manifesting, is that we are going to broaden our offers in the mindset and manifesting space over the 6 to 12 months. The agency with LinkedIn has really been our focus since the pandemic because it was so needed. So many people lost their footing during the pandemic and really didn't know how to sustain or grow their business, that those systems were so needed. So I'm really excited for 2026 that we can come back to that triple M system and more fully offer that holistic package of supporting the entrepreneur internally as well as externally to help them get the results that they're looking for.
Awesome. Well, sounds like it's a good direction and a lot of fun yet ahead. So, well, with that, now as we are wrapping towards the end of the episode, I will jump to the two questions I always like towards the end of each episode. And I know that you touched on or mentioned one a bit, but I'll circle back and ask it anyway, which would be, first question I'd like to ask is, along your journey, what was the worst business decision you ever made? What'd you learn from it?
So I think it goes back to what I mentioned earlier about trying to start too many strategies at the same time. And I think that's also probably a mindset issue if I were to diagnose myself and look back into what I see with other business owners, is that you need to start with one thing and let it become your well-oiled machine before you start something else, or at least have a plan to finish out that implementation piece. Because if you've got 20 different things sitting on your cutting room floor, none of those things are bringing revenue to your business or generating any potential business. So if I could go back in time and fix that piece, I definitely would have. It's just one thing at a time, build, implement, build, implement.
No, I think that's a great lesson to learn, but also an easy mistake to make, but a great takeaway. Second question now that I like to ask. So now if you're talking to somebody that's just getting into a startup or a small business, what would be the one rule of thumb that you'd recommend?
Yep. I guess I would say two things. I actually just met with a client today and she still has one foot in the job and one foot growing the business. And one of the sage pieces of advice I gave her was when it goes to building, if you can build things in your business that don't require you to have set meetings, do that piece first. So, like with her, we were talking about whether she takes on more one-to-one clients right now or if she could start a group coaching program. And I told her, I said, I think you start the group coaching program right now because you can build those foundations, like build out your where you're going to house your content. You can build out where you're going to have your community, and you can start inviting people because you're only going to speak once a week to your group coaching clients. I told her that she could leverage that while she's still got one foot in her job. So I would say that whatever you can do behind the scenes that doesn't require you to have meetings Monday through Friday, 8 to 5, I would do that first. So that's kind of advice number one. The second one is please, please, please have a system to get in front of and have a conversation with your ideal clients. Because if you don't have that system in place, you're putting your livelihood in jeopardy very, very quickly. And I wished I would have understood that. Prior to that whole LinkedIn experience, I did not have that strategy in place. And I think about how scary that was, really just thinking I was going to go to some random networking groups and like pick up a bunch of clients and like life would be good. That's not typically the reality of how business acquisition works.
No, I think that's some great rules of thumb, some great takeaways. So, well, now as we do wrap up towards the end of this episode, if people want to reach out to you, they want to be a customer, they want to be a client, they want to be an employee, they want to be an investor, they want to be your next best friend, any or all of the above, what's the best way to reach out to you, contact you, find out more?
Yep, absolutely. Well, my name is really long to spell, but if you can spell that, you can find me at JaimeEllithorpe.com. You can also find me at 540strategies.com. So 540strategies.com. And most of my time is spent hanging out on LinkedIn. So I would love to connect with you and get to know you and your business and what your goals are and see what I can do to help connect you.
Awesome. Well, I definitely encourage people to reach out, support a great business, expand their network, and if nothing else, make a new best friend. Well, thank you again, Jaime, for coming on the podcast, and wish the next leg of your journey even better than the last. And now for all of you that are listeners out there, if you have your own journey to share, you'd like to be a guest on the podcast, we'd love to have you. So just go to inventiveunicorn.com, apply to be on the show. A couple more things as listeners, make sure to click share, subscribe, leave us a review, helps us to reach even more startups and small businesses to help them along their journey to success. Along that note, if along your journey you ever need help with patents or trademarks or anything else with your startup or your small business, just go to strategymeeting.com, grab some time with us to chat, and we're always here to help. Well, thank you again, Jaime, and wish the next leg of your journey even better than the last.
Thanks so much.
We plant, my friend. Dusty boots, but a heart of gold. Your story's waiting to be told. Inventive journey, here we go. so hard, don't take a seat. Every step you're blazing trail, inventive journey never fails.